Okay, welcome to our session. It's pretty cold where I am, so I'm kind of keeping myself very, very warm. Please excuse me. Welcome to our commemoration of June 16, which is the Soweto Uprising. I think what I'll do is that our general format is that it will be a discussion more than me doing a presentation or anyone doing a presentation. And it is my hope that we'll have some young people joining us. I see that when we were having our issues with connectivity, there is a young lady who had joined us, and I see now that we have a young lady as well, Prema Sandy, who has joined us. I'm really, really happy to have the young people as part of this particular session, because this is more about them than us. Because what I have found is that there is a tendency when it comes to talking about the Soweto Uprising to confining it to being a moment within the evolution of our story and our quest towards freedom and independence. But then there is very little that is usually taken in as far as the lessons of that era being applied to now. And also, one of the things that I find that is generally missing is the whole idea of questioning. Number one, why it is that young people in 1976, and definitely before, because by the time the manifestation of the uprising came in 1976, it was a culmination of events that had been taking place over a period of time. So now the tendency is to lock it at that particular moment without necessarily therefore saying, if that is what they were up against at that particular time, did they achieve what they set out to achieve? Did they gain the victory that they set out to gain? If they didn't, then we need to begin to ask ourselves why they didn't, and how do we, going forward, begin to address the fact that there is still a necessity to carry on. And there is still a necessity basically to ensure that that same spirit is not lost and confined to books and confined to storytelling. So we would like, as much as possible, to have our young people today begin to contextualize their own understanding of what happened in 1976 and how it applies in their lives today. To what extent do they feel that same motivation? Because I was very, very disheartened a couple of weeks ago with this lockdown that we are experiencing at the moment, to have some young people being interviewed and to share their thoughts on what they thought about the whole scenario. And without exaggeration, the ones that I heard speak, the things that they were lamenting was that they cannot buy cigarettes, they cannot buy alcohol, they cannot party, they cannot go to clubs and pubs, and they cannot do all these things which basically do not really speak to the advancement of our cause as African people. And now what we are basically saying is, as we have this conversation with the young Africans in our midst, the question that we would like for them to apply in their minds is to the extent to which they are fulfilling their generational mission? Are they fulfilling it or are they betraying it? Just as Frantz Fanon very aptly put it, that each generation has its own mission, and each generation will either fulfill that mission or betray that mission. And we are basically working at a position now where we are saying, let's stop the blame game. We as the elders have a tendency of blaming the youth and saying our youth are lost and all sorts of things. The youth at the same time blame us for failing to instill values and direction, especially where the Pan-Afrikanist cause is concerned, especially where the consolidation of the global African nation is concerned. Hence the reason why today within this particular space, the idea is for us to have an honest conversation as family. This is a family gathering. This is, I saw on the chat, our brother Martin Sitton posting that we learn from each other. I hope that today it will be a platform whereby we can indeed learn from each other. We can use this as a platform which will contextualize what happened in 1976 with where we are right now. What does it mean to us? How does it project our reality going forward? To what extent can we use it as a catalyst again to revive that spirit that says, come what may, we are ready and we want to achieve that which we want to achieve. Because when you look at it, you're talking about school children who are facing basically the military might of the apartheid regime, who are facing guns and bullets aimed at them and actually being shot at them, but they still persisted because they wanted to achieve something, because they believed in the advancement of the African cause, because they believed in the necessity for Africa to arise. So, my brothers and sisters, as we go deep into our discussion today, please let us be free to advance our thinking as far as also looking at Pan-Africanism as an ideological tool. To what extent is Pan-Africanism actually working for us as African people today? Is it still relevant as an ideology, or could it be a question that we who call ourselves Pan-Africanists are actually now failing to be relevant to the ideology that is supposed to be taking us forward as African people? Because there are two aspects to this. It's either Pan-Africanism has lost relevance or Pan-Africanists have lost relevance. Hence the necessity for us to be sitting around and saying, how do we go forward? How do we reactivate that spirit in the young people? Because for Pan-Africanism to be relevant and be seen to be relevant will be manifested mainly in how we have communicated it to the young people and they are running with it. It's not about us, the elders, being able to articulate and stop at being able to talk about it without necessarily applying it. To what extent are we communicating it in a manner that becomes a living reality to our young people and therefore begin to inform the direction in which they are supposed to go in taking us forward as a people? So I'm opening it up. That is by way of introduction and laying a foundation as to the manner in which the whole conversation is going. And it does not have to be confined to what I've had to say. It has to be broader than that. And one of the reasons why this has become such an important platform is because we also have to begin to interrogate further. When we are talking about African unity, what exactly are we talking about? And what does it mean in its different aspects? Because some people, when they talk about African unity, they're talking about uniting the continent, do away with the borders, and to them that is the full extent of their understanding of African unity. Whereas for some people, African unity entails the unification of the global African nation. But before we can even go to talking about what it means, I think it's necessary to also understand what it means for us to talk about unity in the first place. What are we uniting around? What informs our unity? What is the basic fundamental that we cannot do without for us to be able to attain the unity that we are talking about? I see, Gelen, as I'm talking about the aspect of relevance of Pan-Africanism, there's something you put on the chat. Please do come in. I'd love for us to hear what the young people have to say before we as elders come in and either confuse you more or set you on the right path. So come in, Gele, please.
First, I hope I don't come off as liberal, ne? Because I know among...
Let me just
no,
say
I just hope so.
Just hold on. Before you even put disclaimer on anything, this platform is a family platform. This is the Global African family. We are coming together. We are having a conversation. There is no one who is necessarily right and no one who is necessarily wrong. The whole idea is let's begin to put our issues on the table and see to the extent to which we can find each other and therefore start moving in the same direction. Please don't worry whether someone will call you liberal or whatever they choose to call you, that will be up to them. Please carry on and say what you have to say.
So for me, I think Pan-Africanism is an ideology, Nefos. It's very clear. Okay. And it is not, it's not irrelevant. I think the Pan-Africanist, Tina, people who adhere to the Pan-Africanist ideology are the ones who are becoming irrelevant and making the ideology irrelevant. In this sense, that we don't have programs, right, on the ground. I remember some years ago, I was in Cape Town. When I was in Cape Town, I was in a very liberal space. And you can imagine in very liberal spaces, once you start to speak about unity of Africans, you start to talk about socialism, heads will turn. They'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you cannot, you know? So for some odd reason, yeah, I was in that space. I was called out, but I stood firm. But ultimately, I managed to make sure that at least a few young people, they learn a few things and they understand where we are right now, how capitalism works, why are we advocating for socialism and unity of Africa.
Sure.
But my point is, I remember this one person after that that conversation, he came to me at Tikumi, Kele, I hear you're so passionate about socialism and Pan-Africanism. Just tell me, how can you maneuver to a socialist state through global capitalism? You know, I was so theoretical, and the question was very simple. He was like, look, I don't want what theory tells you. I don't want all of these things. I just want you to just show me where you can say, look, Kele, you've got your few people, you're really practicing this. And these are your values, are your principles on a daily basis. As much as it can be difficult, especially in a country where global capitalism is roaming and everything like that, it can only be possible.
I typed in the ID and the password.
Sorry, my dear. I see you on the phone. I've just put you on mute. Yeah, you can carry on, yeah. Sorry, Gele.
Yes.
May I just request
So my point is,
who are not speaking, just put yourselves on mute for the time being, unless you know that your environment is totally free of any other sounds. Otherwise, thanks a lot. Carry on, Gele. Sorry to disturb you there.
so my point is, Tina as Pan-Africanists, number one, we don't have programs. Number two, Tina, we are not even united ourselves. You know, we are promoting this, but there's really nothing on the ground that really shows Ogoti what is it that we are really advocating for. You know, we'd rather be on Twitter, on Facebook, lamenting, lambasting each other, you know, bringing all these sorts of things. And well, it's cool, but what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, like, we've got lawyers, we've got scientists, we've got people in IT. There's so many things that we can do. We can even start perhaps have a social club, maybe let's say where we buy a piece of land, we start but we just show how it goes, because I've realized that the little steps that we do, right, in our own personal capacity, they're not really taking as much, like, you know, they're not giving that much effect. Because where Advocate Sibanda, you'd assist me with drafting my CV and getting a job. Well, sure, I get the job. Then what? You know? Well, sure, I assist a fellow African, go to Abe right, Abe Nendawo, where to live. And then what? You know? We need to have a certain way of living. We need to formulate programs. We need to have something tangible, as small, little by little, you know, little by little, so that at least we can see that there's a way forward to a certain extent, that to this promised land that we've been talking about, that we envision, we start to create it now. It might not be us who enjoy it now, but future generations, but at least we should have started. But I just feel like we are roaming. We've been having dialogue. I don't know how many dialogues have I been to in my entire life, always talking about Pan-Africanism, always talking about socialism. Even now, even people when they're trying to invent, I'm like, yo, guys, I don't want to go there. It's fine. I've been talking. Invite me somewhere where you are saying, comrades, I think it's time. Let's buy land. Kangani, kangani. I don't know, but we just need to do something. I just feel like, yeah, that's my point. I hope I'm not liberal.
No, thank you very much, Kim.
If I'm being ambassador to be a liberal, then sorry, comrades.
No, you don't have to apologize. And sorry, just before you cut yourself off on your mic, the mistake I made was not to ask you to introduce yourself. What I'll request is that whoever comes on, just give us a brief introduction of who you are and where you have signed in from, so that we have a basic idea. And I would like, as we continue with our conversation, to interrogate some of the issues that would have been raised, because I think Ele has raised some very good points. I'm not going to summarize them, because for me, I don't generally believe in summarizing what other people have said, because we all catch different things which are important to us. So just feel free to speak to the issues that she has raised or introduce other things. But before someone else comes in, Kele, please just introduce yourself. Let people know who you are and where you're based.
Hi, my Africa. My name is Unkele. I'm currently based in Gauteng, in Johannesburg.
Thank you very
Greetings, sis. Greetings.
Go in, my brother. Carry on. Greetings to you. How are you doing? Unmute yourself again. Okay, I thought you wanted to say.
You're talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Carry on.
Oh, yes. Greetings, kings and queens. My name is Omari. I'm coming from London.
Hi, Omar. How are you doing, brother?
I'm not doing too bad, you know. Not doing too
Okay,
bad. I'm
yeah,
just a little
carry on,
tired.
make your contribution, and then whoever comes in, just before you make your contribution, you introduce yourself, and then you carry on with your contribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a little new to this conversation. Was you speaking to Emmanuel before, yeah?
Sorry, my brother.
Was you speaking to Emmanuel before?
Speaking to us, addressing Mkele after she made her contribution. Oh, Emmanuel, no, he hadn't said anything as yet. He was, we were still starting the conversation. When you came in and he left, we hadn't spoken to him as yet. Please feel free to carry on.
Okay, so I'm hearing that this is a conversation for solutions, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, in the UK, in London, we've got a Black Pound Day that's being scheduled. That's a solution in London. But what I would say is a social media based hub where we're able to connect, because one thing we don't do is connect away from our environment enough. That's what I believe. And in this era of technology, we need to use it. I mean, to actually benefit from it, because we don't benefit from it. We set trends, we do this, we do that, but everyone gets the achievements. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think we need like a social media hub where we're able to log on away from Instagram and all these other things. Log on there. If there are any like matters that people shall include themselves in, they're able to reach out on that hub.
Okay, my brother, if you could just elaborate briefly on Black Pound Day.
Okay.
You mentioned that in London you've got Black Pound Day. For those of us who might not be clear as to what that means, just give us a bit of a background and what exactly it entails.
From what I understand, I'm not exactly versed in the Black Pound Day system because it's extremely new. But I believe it's something to do with inputting money in a system that kind of it fluctuates throughout Black communities. But I've aside from that, I believe it's just a day or maybe a year, or the start of supporting Black businesses on a daily basis, wherever they are, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, that's great, my brother. Thank you very much. Thank you. I had a female voice coming in there. I think one of the sisters wanted to say something. Please come in, sister. I'm not sure who of you wanted to say something.
Can you hear me?
Very clearly, my dear. Yes, we can hear you, my sister.
Oh, okay, good. I was having some issues earlier. Greetings, everybody. My name's Hasina. I live in Wolverhampton. Basically, I'm here to kind of speak about Soweto Day. What I currently do is I've worked with young people in a variety of different programs to help upskill them and to help them overcome any barriers that they have. But in regards to my contribution today, it's just to kind of to speak about the Soweto Day awareness. I feel as if it's something that needs to be recognised more amongst young people and to kind of be highlighted, really, because I just feel as if it's acknowledged, but it's not as acknowledged as it could be amongst the youth. So they're aware of everything. So I think that, like myself, I've kind of attended Saturday schools, volunteered at Saturday schools as well, done a variety of mentoring and support with young people. So I think it's a case of just trying to kind of encourage the youth to recognise the importance of Soweto Day, just so at least they understand what's happened and just to kind of acknowledge it. And I think that's something that really does need to be done. I think in terms of like it being promoted, I think social media aspect is good to kind of highlight it as well, but also the concept to have it within the community. So for example, at community events that are hosted by us as Black people, just try and make sure that we're educating everybody. And so it's kind of educated in the homes, in the community, so at least it can be acknowledged well. Because I just think that it's kind of, it's being lost a bit, and not as promoted in the UK, although I can't say it's not promoted in the UK, because it is. I was speaking to a brother I was hoping to join today. He's actually from South Africa, and he was explaining to me that it is something that is celebrated within the communities. However, it's celebrated every year at Milton Keynes only, purely because of the fact that that's the only place it can be hosted as a festival type of way. I did ask him about, you know, the concept of it being called a youth day, which waters down the importance that it is Soweto Day. And he agreed and said that it shouldn't be considered youth day. He mentioned the fact that it is Soweto Day, but they said that they would rather prefer to be able to remember it rather than not have anything at all. So what I think is that it's really important that for it to be promoted within the community, within the Saturday schools, within the household, you know, acknowledged within a variety of different establishments. So it's not forgotten about. But when he did say to me that it's just done in Milton Keynes, that made me think, okay, well, why just there? But again, it involves a lot of planning and the concept not to seem as if it's just for Soweto, which isn't right really, because it filters that down, it waters it down. So it's, you know, that's what I think. So yeah, but yeah, that's it.
No, so thank you very much. No, you're right, because I think from what I am picking, let me just, the three contributions that we've had so far, the things that jump out at me, firstly, is the issue of programs, it's the issue of the Black Pound Day, and it's the awareness raising element, which from how I understand it, kind of tie into each other. Because the whole idea is that by the end of this conversation, we will not simply say goodbye and we'll see you again next year when we have another commemoration. We will be able to actually have a situation where social media has been mentioned as a tool that can be used, where the youth can actually use that social media tool to get these programs moving and going forward. And I see that on the chat, Prema, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm not sure whether it's Prema or Prima. Prima Sandy raises the issue about the youth having this zeal. And I think that is something I want us to basically talk to more. And also the whole aspect that she's raising about bringing the elders and the youth together and therefore bettering the community and the continent. So I would like to hear more about that particular aspect as well, because there must be some practical takeaways that we come out with from this program. There must be something that will be able to put in perspective the concept of the Black Pound Day to something that can be applied across the board amongst us as African people. Regardless of where we are, we should be able to have these sort of mechanisms in place. So, yes, Prema, if you want to come in and speak a bit more to the point that you've raised, and anything else, of course, that you would like to touch upon, please do come in. And the system that we are working on, let me just indicate, the Zoom structure that we're working with is the one that allows for 40 minutes and then cuts off at the end of 40 minutes, because we are operating the free version of Zoom. So what's going to happen is that if it cuts off, please sign back in on the same link. So basically you're able to come back in within a minute or so and the conversation will continue. So basically what I'm saying is that it will cut off because we have not been in a position to upgrade. When it cuts off, please, it doesn't mean we are done with our conversation. All it means is that this particular session is over, then we're moving into another session. Please do come back in. Prima, over to you.
Good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you're all coming from, but my name is Prima Sandy from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, UK. So I agree with my sister from Johannesburg. I don't want to offend you. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so please forgive me. I'm very much like, there's been too much dialogue. We've been sat around tables talking for years and nothing has happened. So it is action. We want action. And the youths they're ready. They've mobilized, they're organizing themselves. We just need the support of the elders, because the elders, they come with wisdom, they come with experience. I know there's most probably a lot of elders who have experienced certain or been part of organizations where you've revolutionized and changed a lot of things within your own communities. So we need that experience. What went right? What went wrong? How could we adapt? I mean, we're part of a generation, an era where technology, we've got technology on point. We know how to maneuver ourselves around that. It's just, we need the experience of the elders. And yeah, there's just too many scattered efforts. I mean, brother, you're in London. I know Emmanuel. They've set up an organization called Black BPG.
Black People Giving, yeah. Black
People Giving. This is a charity. They work. They do weekly sessions for the people in the community. They work on a membership basis where they pay from as little as £5 up to £50. They have access to financial education. There's an organization they collaborate with that come down and teach our community about finances, about mortgages, about trading, and how we can capitalize on our money. They are teaching people how to exercise the body, well-being. This is a charity and it's set up by young people. So we are doing the work. We just need the support. We just need to all gather all our resources, our experience together in one place so we can start capitalizing and start making changes within the community. And like what you were saying, sister, in Wolverhampton, the children need to know about these things. They need to know about this uprising. They need role models. There's many rolling stones in the streets. They need to know about, we have overcome certain adversaries. They need to know this. And it's only going to come from you elders explaining certain things. We have the zeal, we have the energy, and sometimes the energy isn't channeled in the best way, but the energy's there, the zealousness is there, the frustration is there. It can be used for our betterment, and that's what we want. The youths are saying, no more, enough is enough. We need you to help us. We are listening, we're open. That's why we're here. That's why we've come here. We need your support. And that's my thoughts.
Prima, thank you very much for that. I think what I'll do, if anyone else wants to come in, we've got 4 minutes left. I've noted the point that Prima has said. And then in the next segment, after all the youths have had an opportunity to have their say as regards how they see things going forward, I'll afford an opportunity for the elders on the platform to also make their own input as to how we see our role in as far as helping shape and direct the youths, because one of the realities that is there, even when we look at the lessons from the past, is that the elders have always been there to basically give us guidance and direction. So anyone else can come in. Whoever wants to come in on that point, please feel free to come in. Any one of you young
So
people.
can you repeat that last bit?
Wait.
Sorry?
Sorry,
Wait,
it
can you
went down
repeat?
a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, can you repeat it again?
Okay,
The ending statement.
No, the ending statement was basically to say, I can't even remember what exactly I said. I was just flowing.
Oh, sorry.
Basically, what I'm basically saying is that we as the elders are here to give you the support, and in the sections that will follow, after you guys have said what you have to say and how you perceive the reality going forward, then we will come in, because we as well are a product of the wisdom of the elders. It has been customary within the African culture that we get direction from our elders going forward. So we would love to be in a position to play that role in as far as you, the youths going forward. We should not be a stumbling block or become a route by which to take you off course as against taking you in the right direction. So I hope I've kind of captured it somewhere there. I'm not sure exactly what you were looking for there. But anyways, we've got... yes, sir.
Yeah. What solutions have you lot gathered so far?
I beg your pardon?
What solutions have you gathered so far?
Oh, okay, you came in. Okay, sure. No, it's cool, my brother. What we have basically established so far is that there is a necessity for programs which basically speak to our direction as an African nation. There is a necessity to look more into the Black Pound Day concept, which basically talks to supporting African-centered businesses. And then there is the necessity to raise awareness, which is the educational component to what June 16 was about and is about, and how basically it is taking us forward. And then there is also the solution in as far as community-related projects, like the example that Prima gave on the Black people giving. And so that is what so far we have as some of the solutions going forward. So that, please feel free to come in with more or further elaborate on what is already on the table. Please introduce yourself, my brother, and say where you are. But then again, we've got a minute left. This thing will be cutting